Is living in Myrtle Beach really a vacation? We're going to discuss it today. What's happening, guys? It's Jeremy Blanton with Remax Southern Shores, and today I've got a topic that we got to talk about. Spring has hit here in Myrtle Beach. The plants are growing, the spring market is here, buyers are coming to town, and too many of the people that I've spoken to over the last few weeks have thought that living here would be like when they're on vacation. When you come on vacation to the beach, what do? You spend all day sitting there at the beach, taking in as many sun rays as you can and just having a good time. But today we're going to discuss the reality of living here in the Myrtle Beach area, and is it really like a vacation? I've got 5 points that we're going to talk about and a couple bonus tips that we'll share along the way, so make sure that you pay attention to the whole video. Without any further ado, let's jump into this and let's discuss this a little bit. And so the first thing that we got to discuss is that when you're living here at the beach, you're not going to the ocean every single day. When on vacation, you got to think. You're on vacation. You've taken off a week or 2 weeks, or maybe you're one of those lucky people that can get up to 3 weeks at a time off to come down here to Myrtle Beach. And what are you wanting to do while you're here? You're wanting to soak up as much sunshine as you can and spend as much time as possible with your toes in the sand on the beach, right? So you're getting up in the morning at 9 o'clock, down to the beach right away, and you're staying there until the sun's about to set on a regular basis. Getting up the next day, doing the same thing, rinse and repeat. So one of the questions and problems that I run into a lot of time when talking with someone who's moving to the area is they have to be within walking distance to the ocean. They want to have a house that's right around the corner from the beach that they can go down there and spend every day. But the reality is that you can't do that when you live here. There still are other things that are going to take place each and every day that you're going to have to take care of. Things like laundry, cleaning the house, cutting the grass, taking the dog to the veterinarian, going to a doctor's appointment, going grocery shopping, all of that kind of stuff. You still have to do that each and every day. And so while it's a great concept to be able to be within that walking distance to the ocean and this mindset that you're going to do that all day long, but the reality is it's just not going to happen. And if you're someone like me, you're still going to be working every day, so going to the beach, that definitely isn't going to happen on a daily basis. So the reality is that when you live here, you might get down to the beach once, maybe twice a week. Now, my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, which is a full-time job. Taking care of the kids is definitely a much harder job at times than selling real estate, I think. But as a stay-at-home mom, she still does find her time to get to go down to the beach a few times a week. What does she do? Well, she wakes up in the morning early, gets the kids out to school, and once they get on the school buses and they're gone for the day, that's when she'll grab her purse, grab her keys, and go down to the ocean for a quick walk along the sand. She might go for an hour or two, get a little bit of a workout in, taking a walk, looking for a few shark's teeth along the way, and having a good time. The reality is when you live here in Myrtle Beach, you don't have to get down to the ocean every single day and be there every time the sun is up. Why? Well, first off, the sun's going to be up 350 days of the year. So you're going to have a lot of sunshine and a lot of opportunity. Number two is that while we have all of that stuff going on, you still got to do all the daily life things. And thirdly, it's going to be there. So when you're on vacation, you're only here for a limited time. You're here maybe a week or two, like I said. And so you want to get soaking up as much sunshine as you can. But when you live here in Myrtle Beach, you can go to the beach at any time. So if I want to go down to the beach this Sunday, I can do that after church and spend an hour or two and then go back home. And then Monday night after work, if I'm having a stressful day, if I just need to go relax and unwind a little bit, I might go back down to the beach again and spend 30 minutes just sitting there listening to the ocean and focusing my mind back in on things. The best part is I can do it then the next day if I need to as well. So the reality of having to live within a walking distance to the ocean, well, it's just not necessarily something you want. Now let's talk about some of the other negatives of being that close to the ocean. If you're living within walking distance to the beach, number one, you're more than likely going to be in one of the sections of Myrtle Beach that's going to be more touristy. You're going to have the beachwear shops around the corner. You're going to have all of the restaurants. You're going to have the Walmarts right around the corner. All of that stuff is going to be right there in your backyard. You're also going to know every time there's an event going on in Myrtle Beach. And if you didn't know this already, there are tons of things that happen here all year round. Where I live over on the west side of the waterway, I don't really know when those things are going on. We just recently had one of the big car shows here in town, and there were classic cars all over the place. I didn't know it because I live over on the west side of the waterway. How did I find out? Well, the one day while I was out running errands, I needed to get some gas. So I stopped by the Walmart to pick up some gas. And while I was pumping gas, next to me was this really cool classic car. And one of those old cool cars where you got to put the gas in and take the license plate down to put it in. Yeah, one of those kind of cool ones. So while he's pumping it, I'm sitting there looking at him going, oh gosh, it must be car week here in town where all of the cool cars are in town. But there's always events going on. When you live over on the east side of the waterway and within that walking distance to the beach, you're going to be all up in that stuff. You're going to know when it's bike week. You're going to know when it's Jeep Jam. You're going to know when it's Mustang week. You're going to know when it's the Heart Walk and all of the horses are here in town. All the different activities and things that take place around Myrtle Beach almost year round now, you're going to be living in that all the time. So when you're thinking about that place to live and you're thinking, hey, I want to be in the walking distance, you might want to reconsider it. So the second thing that you want to talk about as well when it comes to this living close to the beach and having this vacation mentality of living right by it is that the cost is going to become exponentially higher. I say this all the time. The closer we get to the big blue ocean, the higher the expenses are going to be. Cost of the land, cost of taking care of it and maintaining it, cost of insuring it, all of that stuff is going to go up a significant amount. One of the big builders here in town, D.R. Horton or Pulte or any of them, I can use any of the builders. All of these builders basically do things the same way. They all probably have, 8 to 10 different floor plans that they build, and they build them in several different communities all up and down the beach. The big difference is the closer the house gets to the ocean, the higher the price point's going to be. So for example, an 1,800 square foot house built by one of the big builders that's here in Carolina Forest might be for sale for $375,000 to $400,000 for that wonderful house. But if we take that same exact house with the same finishes, the same almost everything, amenities, everything, and we move it out towards Conway, that can go from being a $350,000 to $400,000 house down to probably $295,000 to $300,000. So you can see moving 15-20 minutes inland can save you probably $50,000 to $100,000. So if you're someone who's on a little bit of a tighter budget, you might have to go a little bit farther out inland in order to get the house that you want for the budget that you can afford. One of my other clients who's in the process right now of buying a home, he's a first-time home buyer. His budget is very, very tight. And he's moving here from across the country, and so he doesn't have a lot of extra money, and he can't really afford to buy a high-end dollar home. So we started looking and trying to figure out where to go, and he found a nice development that is out in the Longs or Loris area of the northern end of the beach. This great community, he's getting a beautiful, wonderful, brand new home that's like 1,700 square feet with a 2-car garage and a huge, massive backyard in this house for under $220,000. Now, if we took that same house that's, 30 minutes from the ocean and brought it into that 15 to 20 minute range, or even a little bit closer, that's going to go from $225,000 up to probably $350,000 to $400,000. So if you're looking for it, you might have to, sacrifice a little bit of that closeness to the beach in order to get everything you want in the house. Besides, if you're not going to the beach every day, it's not going to be that big of a sacrifice to have to drive an extra 10 minutes on those times you want to take a trip down to the ocean. Number 3, and I talked about this a few minutes ago a little bit, but when you're closer to the ocean and you're living in that east of Business 17 or right there along the main corridor inside city limits of Myrtle Beach or North Myrtle Beach, is that it's just going to be noisier. You're going to have all the tourists going on. You're going to have a lot of extra noise and things that are just going to make the peacefulness of being in some of these developments a lot less. Shortly after my wife and I were married, we went through the housing bust of 2007, 2008, and we were forced into renting for a while. And when that took place, we had a good friend who reached out and said, hey, I've got a place that you guys can rent for me. I'll give it to you for a really affordable price. So we rented this house. It was 1,000 yards from the ocean. Now, some of you hearing this right now are thinking just, oh my gosh, that would be the most amazing thing in the world to be that close to the beach. Yes, having the accessibility down to the ocean, that was kind of cool. And being able to, on days when it wasn't real heavy traffic, open the windows and hear the waves a little bit, that was kind of cool too. But what stank is that this house sat very close along Kings Highway or 17 Business here in Myrtle Beach. What did that mean? It meant that we constantly heard traffic. We couldn't go in our backyard and just relax and enjoy it because there was constant noise of cars going up and down the street and all of that fun stuff going on. It also meant that during the night, when we're trying to sleep, we would hear the sirens up and down the highway flying by at all times of the and hours of the day. It meant that we would see the flashing lights of the ambulances going by, waking us up in the middle of the night. So while we had that great accessibility to the ocean, we gave up a lot of privacy, a lot of peace and quiet, and a lot of quality sleep at times just because there was so much noise and so many things going on. So while you might think you want to be close to the ocean, if you're someone who says, hey, I'd rather have a little bit peace and quiet, I don't mind it, you might want to reconsider that. Think about going west just a little bit. Okay, so another thing that we want to talk about here is that when you come on vacation to Myrtle Beach, you're used to eating out all the time, right? You're on vacation. You've set aside a budget of money to eat out and enjoy things while you're away, right? You've got meals planned out where you're wanting to go to eat at this tourist spot and this tourist spot and all those fun things. But the reality is that when you live here in Myrtle Beach, you're not going to be able to afford to go out to eat every single night. Well, some of you might be able to afford it, but I know personally I'm not affording it and I'm not spending that much money to go out to eat on a regular basis. The other thing that you're going to realize real quickly is that you don't want to eat at all the touristy spots. When we would come on vacation to Myrtle Beach, one of our favorite places to eat here in the area was the Carolina Roadhouses. It's located just south of 48th Avenue and Kings Highway in downtown Myrtle Beach. By the way, if you love chicken tenders, go there, try them. They're some of the best ones you can ever have in your life. But it's a great spot. They also have a loaded baked potato soup that my cousin absolutely loves. Hey, Dina, if you're watching, shout out to you. But this is a great spot. This is also, though, an extremely popular place for tourists to go to eat. So what does this mean? This means if you want to go and eat here during the summertime, you can expect basically from around, say 4:30 in the afternoon till probably closing time around 9 o'clock at night to have an extremely long wait to get a table. Here's an example. Back last year during the summertime, our church was doing a beach baptism down at the ocean. And after it was over, we did it at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. We finished right around like 7:45 to 8 o'clock at night. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? We're over on this side of the beach for once. It's almost 8 o'clock at night. The line can't be that long right now. Why don't we go to the Carolina Roadhouse and try to eat? So we went there. We walk in the door and the place is still packed. There are people sitting around everywhere waiting for tables. And at that time, it was like an hour and 15-minute wait still to get a table. What did we do? We didn't do like most tourists that were sitting there waiting because they don't know other good spots to go. Instead, we went, got in our car, we drove west a little bit over to the other side of the waterway and walked right into one of the local hotspots and ate there instead. Why? When you live here, you learn where to go so you don't have to deal with those touristy spots. Honestly, I can't remember the last time that I went and waited at a restaurant more than a 15-minute wait to get a table to eat here in Myrtle Beach. And guys, we have a lot of restaurants here to pick from. I've shared this statistic before, but did you know that we have enough restaurants here in Myrtle Beach to eat 3 meals a day for a year and a half and never eat the same place twice? So yes, some of them, they're not the greatest. And yes, there are other ones that are just really, really good. But when you live here, you go to those spots in the off season and during the on season when things are going on, that's when you find the local spots off the beaten path to go and eat, and you never have to wait, and you're still getting a really good meal. The big difference as well is this. When you go into these larger touristy spot restaurants or places at like Broadway at the beach or Barefoot Landing, where all the tourism really takes place and a lot of that stuff is happening, when you go to eat there, those servers, they've been dealing with people who are on vacation all day, sometimes aren't the nicest people to the servers, not giving them the greatest of tips because they're never going to see them again. And so you don't always get the greatest of service. Also, because there's such long waits and there's such a huge volume of people that they're trying to turn and burn through, the quality of the food isn't the greatest. When you find those local hotspots places to go and eat, that's where you're getting good quality food, excellent service, and they're going to become your friend. They're going to get to know you. And if you go in there a couple times, when you go back the next time, they'll be like, "Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?" That's the kind of service that you're going to get when you find those local spots to go and eat. Once you start to live here, you're going to learn hot spots to go and eat as a local and not have to deal with the touristy spots, not have to deal with the long lines, not have to deal with less than great service, and have a good quality hot meal. Another thing that we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to bring up is if you're someone like me or like a lot of people that are moving to our area, you're still going to have to work throughout the day. I'm working Monday through Friday most weeks, and I work all day long. So getting down to the beach for me, it's not something that happens very often. I might get to go down 2 to 3 times a year. Now, I don't go down to the ocean quite as much as others because I'm not a big fan of sand between my toes, but I do enjoy to go down once in a while and just sit and relax and enjoy the waves. But for me, I'm working throughout the week. My wife, she's got a lot going on with our kids. And like I mentioned earlier, she might go down once or twice a week where she's there for maybe 2 hours at a time. We're not going down to the beach from the minute the sun gets up till the minute the sun goes down. In fact, most people that I know that live in this area, they're never doing that type of thing. We might go for an hour or two during the day, and then we go back to what we have to do with our daily lives. What we do is we know we can go the next day or the next day or whenever we want to again and get to still enjoy some of Myrtle Beach's greatest stands that we can find. So we're doing things like that instead. Now, if you are someone who is of the age of retirement, you might have a little bit more time on your hands to be able to go down and enjoy the beach and walk along it every single day and spend more time there. But as I mentioned earlier, there's still life that takes place, things that we're going to have to do. You still got to take care of the yard. You still have to maintain the inside of the house. You still got to do laundry. You still got to grocery shop, cook, go to doctor's appointments, and all those things. So going to the beach, it's not going to happen quite as much as you may want it to. But at the end of the day, you're still living in a place where you can get to it real quick and easy from just about anywhere you could live. All right, the next thing that I need to talk about here in a minute. I can't tell you how many times over the last few weeks that I've had conversations with people where we've talked about living in Horry County, living in Myrtle Beach. And when I talk about Myrtle Beach, guys, I'm talking about everything from the North Carolina border all the way down to Georgetown and all the way out to Conway. I'm just kind of talking about the area. It's kind of like my wife. She's originally from Atlanta, but she's not from downtown Atlanta. She's from Alpharetta, up on the northern end of Atlanta. But when we talk to people, we say, "Oh, she's from Milton," they have no clue where that is. But if we say Atlanta, oh, okay, cool. Same kind of concept here with Myrtle Beach. But living in the Myrtle Beach area and having a 15-minute drive to the ocean, it's really not that far. It's really not that bad. I've talked to so many people over the last few years that, "Oh, I don't want to be that far. Jeremy, I don't want to be that far from the beach. I can't, no, oh no, it's got to be closer to me. It's too far." Normally what I ask him is this: well, how far do you live from the ocean right now? Well, it's 4 hours. Oh, it's 6 hours. Oh, it's 10 hours. Oh, it's 12 hours. Oh, it's 3 hours. Okay, so a 15-minute drive is still much closer, right? Yeah, it is. We have to kind of look at things into perspective. And once we take things into perspective, it does make things a lot more bearable to be that 15-minute drive. One of the things I can tell you about Myrtle Beach and about this area is that it's not really a walkable city, and it's not safe because there's so many tourists in town that aren't paying attention to the roads to try to cross the Kings Highway, which is a 6-lane highway with a left turn in the middle. So you're always better to just drive to get to the places. Also, I'm not a big fan of taking a golf cart to do it because they're not as safe as being in a car that has airbags and seatbelts and all of that stuff that you need. So load into the car, drive down to the beach. It's just much safer in the long run. But when you take a moment to think about it, a 12 to 15 minute drive from, say, Carolina Forest or from Longs over to the beach is not that far. Especially if you're going to be there for a couple hours, it's not that big of a deal. So don't write off an area just because it's too far away. Okay, and the final thing that I want to talk about with this is that living here in this area, you're not on vacation anymore. So you need to start thinking about how you're going to do your day-to-day routines versus how do you plan out your vacations. My wife and I, we have vacationed down in Disney World a couple times over the last few years. In fact, we did a trip once, just the two of us. If you've never done with just adults, it is a blast. Go do it. But when we go on vacation down to Disney, we do things a lot differently than when we live at home. When we're in Disney World, especially on a day that we're going to a park, my wife, she's kind of a little bit of a tyrant, but hey, we're up at 6:15. We're taking our showers. We're ready to walk out the door at 7:30 to get that breakfast, be on the Skyliner, and over to the Magic Kingdom by this certain time. And we want to be there that when the gates open at 7:45, we're ready to walk in the door, be the first in line so that we can maximize our entire day. We're going to spend, the entire day from the minute the park opens to the minute the park closes in that park. We're going to optimize our time to get through as many rides as possible, eat as many snacks, and try as many amazing pieces of food we want to do. And we're probably going to walk at least 20 to 25,000 steps during that day. And by the end of it, just be completely exhausted. But no time to rest for the weary, because tomorrow we're getting up and doing the same thing, right? Well, when we're at home, that's not our lifestyle. That's not the way we're doing it. But in Disney World, we're on vacation. The same thing's true for people coming on vacation here at the beach. They have a different thing that they're doing. Well, when you live here, it's totally different. So let's discuss this a little bit. First off, like I mentioned earlier, you're still working. So you're going to have to plan in when your job is going to have hours that you got to go to work or do those things. Number two, you don't want to be where all the tourism stuff is going on. You want to be as far away from it as possible. So that's why I love living over in Carolina Forest. I've talked about it many times in the past, but living in Carolina Forest to me is a great option because I'm 10 to 15 minutes over to all of the touristy stuff that Myrtle Beach has to offer. I'm 10 to 15 minutes down to the airport. I can get on Highway 31 within about a 5-minute wait from my house, and once I'm on 31, I can get all the way to the northern end of the beach or all the way down to the southern end of the beach pretty quick and pretty easy. And once I have that, I can expand out for my business and go anywhere and everywhere I need to be. So for me, I needed to be in an area where I could do that. We're also west of the waterway. I've talked about in the past, west of the waterway is kind of that invisible barrier that keeps away the tourists. They don't want to come over here. Why? It's too far. It takes too long to go across. But living here, it's not that bad, people. It might be a 5-minute drive, and so somebody who's watching right now, they're thinking, well, what about, during rush hour? Carolina Forest, we've been told, is horrible with traffic. Let's talk about this a moment. I mentioned a few minutes ago, my wife, she's from the Atlanta area. She laughs when people talk about rush hour here in our area. The reality of rush hour here in Myrtle Beach is that it adds maybe 5 to 7 minutes to our trip versus in Atlanta or a big city like New Jersey or New York or California, adding 2 to 3 hours sometimes. Yeah, that's never happened here in Myrtle Beach. If the roads are backed up, we simply take another route and go around it. So you wanted to pay attention to that when you're thinking about places where you want to move here in the Myrtle Beach area. The 10 to 15 minute drive, it's not that big of a deal. But by doing that 10 minutes west or south or north, you might find the perfect subdivision where you want to move. Kind of like my client who just found a house. He really wanted to be in the Market Common area, but the price point for the Market Common name took the price budget of the houses higher than he wanted to spend. So we found a great community called Crescent Cove, just west of the Market Common area, maybe a 5-minute drive to be into the downtown part of Market Common. And he's able to get a house there for well within his budget. We were able to take what would have been probably a $600,000 house over there and getting it over in the other place for well under $450,000. So it's all just about finding the right place and finding what fits your needs and your wants and desires. So if you're thinking about moving to the area, this is just some of the stuff that I have found about living here and selling real estate now for 20 plus years. If you're planning to move to the area and you want to learn more about it, down below you're going to find a simple link over to my website, jeremyblanton.com, where you can book a call and we can discuss your move to the area, your wants, your desires, and figure out a game plan as to what's going to work best for you. Feel free to book that. It connects right into my Google Calendar, and we can discuss what's going to be the best plan for your move to the Myrtle Beach area. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video about moving to the area and how it's really not a vacation. But the reality is this, guys, living here in this area, it is awesome. It is like being on vacation on a regular basis. The fact that I can leave work here in a few minutes and drive over to the beach and sit there for an hour, that's pretty awesome. If I lived in Pennsylvania still, that's not happening. If I lived in just about anywhere else across the country, I wouldn't have that option to me. But because I live here in the Myrtle Beach area, that is definitely here. If I don't want to go to the beach, I could go do any of the hundreds of activities and things that are here in our area. Or if I don't want to cook dinner tonight, I could go to one of the thousands of restaurants here in our area. So that's why I love living here in the Myrtle Beach area. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, get that bell on, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.